go to the White House now. Our chief White House correspondent, Hallie Jackson, on the North Lawn. Hallie, any reaction from the White House at this point?
Not yet, Lester. The president is holding a meeting with labor union leaders in just a couple of minutes here. However, at this point, at least, the press is not invited inside that meeting. We may or may not see the president later on this afternoon before he heads to West Virginia for a roundtable and rally. You can see it's raining, though, so there may, in fact, not be an opportunity to get some questions to the president as he leaves the South Lawn. But let me make a couple of points here, Lester. The president has talked about Michael Cohen before. To pick up on what Jonathan and Dan have discussed related to cooperation, the president has been asked if he's worried about what Michael Cohen will say generally if, in fact, he does end up cooperating with prosecutors. The president has said, no, I'm not worried because I've done nothing wrong. And let me also just point out the relationship between these two men. Michael Cohen and President Trump go back a long ways, Lester. Michael Cohen knows a whole lot about a whole lot of business dealings related to Donald Trump. He was his fixer for years. This is a person, Michael Cohen, who said to Vanity Fair last year, I would take a bullet for the president. That relationship has since deteriorated significantly, particularly over this past summer. You had Cohen, for example, saying publicly that his first loyalty is to his family, not to the president. You also had the president putting distance between himself and somebody who used to be right there in his inner circle. So we will see the cooperation piece of it, at least, is something that I imagine folks inside the West Wing are watching very closely, perhaps none more so than the man in the Oval Office, Donald Trump.
Yeah, Hallie Jackson on a rainy North Lawn there at the White House. Thanks. Let's turn to our political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Chuck, lay out the magnitude of a plea deal or a cooperation deal, what it could mean for the president.
Well, look, it could mean Michael Cohen knows a lot more about the president's business dealings. And remember, there's a lot more to this than just the Russia probe. You know, Mueller also seemed to find potential pay-to-play, this idea that you had companies like AT&T and Novartis paying Michael Cohen or Michael Cohen going to them, making promises, quid pro quo promises perhaps in exchange for money. That's another part of this. That could embroil the president in ways that we haven't even talked about that much, because the Russia portion of this is sometimes the shiny metal object of this investigation. But remember, there is a lot more to Michael Cohen and what they're investigating than just what I think today may be just about his taxi cab business, right? That may be just one part of this. But that's the scary thing for the White House. The scope of the Michael Cohen investigation could not just reach into the Russia probe, but also just into the government itself with all of this pay to play. So there is, I think, a lot for the president to fear with Michael Cohen, even more so than anything that happens at the Manafort trial.
All right, Chuck, thanks very much. Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.